Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's LinkedIn Live. Today, my guest is Pascal Yammine, who is the CEO of Zilliant, and has been CEO since August 2022. So we'll get to hear about 2 years worth of that journey. Zilliant is in the pricing management, pricing optimization, revenue intelligence technology space. So thanks so much for joining us and for being with us today, Pascal.
Thank you, Karen. It's a pleasure.
Terrific. So I want to hear about you and your leadership journey, of course, but maybe we could start. You could tell us a bit about Zilliant. I know it's got a 25-year-old history, but if we could hear a bit about that and its USP.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, Zilliant, as you mentioned, is 25 years old as a company. I've been there for 2 years, so it has rich history. Most of that history is in price optimization, and really has been a leader in the space in B2B price optimization, price management for the last couple of decades. As many companies have in the space, companies have built software around it, and our journey right now is to move out of price optimization as a consulting practice and more into building a SaaS product that allows us to scale that skill set. So similar to a lot of technologies, it usually starts with a lot of really intelligence and less leveraging technologies like AI. And then it's quite how do you make it repeatable and more affordable for larger audiences and more companies around the world.
Yeah. So you recently acquired a company, InMindCloud. Could you talk a little bit about that acquisition and how it fits into your strategy?
Yeah, that's great. In December of 2023, we made that acquisition. And InMindCloud had built a CPQ, and there's two really important parts to that. Number one.
I just want the acronym. So that's configure, price, and quote.
Configure, price, quote. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you. Okay.
And the key word in the middle of that CPQ, the price, is price. And so, we believe at Zilliant that the core is that we need to put pricing in the heart of our customers' business, and pricing is a life cycle itself. And in order to really make pricing relevant, you have to be able to deliver to customers. So CPQ is a delivery mechanism. It's how you deliver a price to a customer. InMindCloud also has an e-commerce use case, so you can obviously deliver it through a quote, deliver it through a partner, or deliver it through a commerce use case. And that allows us to give our customers a full life cycle that is core to pricing. The second, strategic relevance of InMindCloud specifically as a CPQ is it was built with deep integrations to SAP and SAP ERPs, which of course in our focus areas of manufacturing and distribution is very important.
Great. Could you give me an example of like a customer and how they use your product?
Of course. We have customers around the world, large enterprises. One of our customers who use us is a large distribution company. Of course, they use our pricing tools to identify the best price, identify guardrails for the price, like kind of the floor or the max. And it's segmented, right? So region by region, every segment is different. That is the pricing capability. That's price management, price optimization. Now, how do they bring that price to the market? They use our Rev Intel and delivery tools to bring it to the salesperson who's in front of the customer to know what price to offer and what to recommend. Not only what price to recommend, but what products and services would be most relevant to that customer. So that's like the Rev Intel, knowing what to sell and also knowing what price to sell it at. So it kind of completes that loop. And of course, we get the feedback, what works, what didn't work, what's the win rate that we get as a result of those, average discounts. And that kind of becomes a full circle pricing life cycle. That data can help and make the AI models more intelligent, more useful, and then we get more precise with what we recommend in terms of product recommendations, price recommendations.
Great. Well, because we're in 2024, I have to ask you, how are you using AI to support these solutions?
I think Zilliant has always been focused on AI, going back for a long time. I think most price optimization, has leveraged machine learning for some time. And I think what we're seeing now is a broader use case of AI, not just machine learning. And what we're looking at now is how to, from an innovation perspective, is leveraging some of the large language models and what people, oftentimes hear ChatGPT and Gen AI is how do we start to take advantage of the combination of AI techniques to bring better insights. Our perspective is faster time to insights, faster time to actions for the customers, and obviously faster time to get to value as a result of our products. And so product recommendations, not waiting for a customer to enter in what they're looking for, but actually being able to suggest what they don't even ask about. That's really what we're striving for in our use of AI in the future.
Yeah. So I know you came to Zilliant from Salesforce, where
Yes.
you had a number of positions, most recently SVP and General Manager for the Revenue Cloud. So given that role and your history in go-to-market, I'm imagining that customers, and in particular, are always at sort of the forefront of your mind.
Yeah.
How do you balance in your role as CEO now the needs and expectations of employees and customers?
It's a great question. Priorities of employees and customers are top of mind for me, number one. And I think Salesforce was a great way for me to learn that mindset and really instill it deeply in terms of the importance of focusing on the customer and the employees at the same time. Because if you don't do both, one will be at sacrifice. And so at Salesforce, we evolved. And so my experience at Salesforce has given me a lot of different ways to do different things. As I started when we had less than 2,000 employees and I left with 80,000 employees, as you can imagine, we went through a lot of transformations internally. So Salesforce was constantly transforming itself, and the willingness to transform, even as a large company, the willingness to look differently, act differently, think differently, even get rid of things that were just 2 years ago that we built at Salesforce to say that's now we're kind of past that. That willingness was really important, and it gave me kind of a lot of the mentality that I needed and bring to Zilliant. From a customer perspective, the customer is at the center of everything. Everything we do is in order to create business outcomes for our customers. It's not around cool technology. It's not around cool science. It doesn't matter if our AI is better. It doesn't matter if it's not creating value and outcomes for our customers. And ultimately, customer impact and employee satisfaction are really tied. People feel good about making an impact, whether that be to customers or whether that be through our volunteering programs or through our employee resource groups. So creating opportunities to create measurable and appreciated impact is what we're going to focus on. And I think they're connected. So connecting that with a customer and employee isn't at odds with each other in that mindset.
Yeah. Well, I 100% agree with you there. So what strategies or how do you ensure that this customer success stays at the center of your decision-making process?
Well, number one is engagement. There isn't a week that I go through that I'm not talking to customers. I'll be spending the next 2 days in front of customers, whether it be one-on-one meetings where I travel or meet with a customer online, or whether it's at an event where we host customers. I'm always talking to customers. I wouldn't go a week without a customer conversation, or usually multiple customer conversations. And it's not just me, my leadership team. I expect everybody to be talking to customers because it's important that they all hear directly from the customer, not through me every time or not through the customer success team, but directly to customers. So there's a lot of programs that we have in place to force that conversation, but really more around not around forcing it. The leadership team that we have, they all want that conversation. That's part of why they're here. So forcing it doesn't work as much as that's what their focus is anyways, and that's important to me.
Yeah. Well, it's so important. I certainly both been in companies, worked with companies, interviewed CEOs where it was a little more sort of telling people, get on board. But this ability to have people come to the company and sort of share that as a core value. I'd read actually an article that you wrote around adopting a startup mentality to accelerate growth, which I think was fairly recent. I'm thinking that is tied in hand with this idea about constantly needing to sort of reinvent yourself. You're talking about Salesforce willingness to change. Could you talk a bit about ways that adopting this kind of mentality has encouraged innovation within Zilliant?
Yeah, number one, innovation is more than just technology innovation. It's how we do business, it's how we interact. It's across the entire how we operate as a company. How we engage our internally employees. And for me, it just means you think of a startup mentality. You don't have a choice but to fail and to learn and to adapt every single time, and you have to make it okay. For me, it's okay if people try things that are new and it doesn't work. Just try something different, whether it be a new technology or whether it be a new approach to engaging a customer. That's what I would want to celebrate. Celebrating those failures internally is really important. Celebrating where we said no to a deal is as important as celebrating a win. And so I think that mentality has to be core for how we operate internally. And it's something that is hard when you have a company that's been around for 24, 25 years, and they've done things a certain way to say, do it differently. What could you do differently? It is hard. So one of the key things that we talked about is how do you instill that mentality? Obviously, as you mentioned, you could tell people, but that doesn't work. That works to some degree, but it doesn't work in a positive way because they may be doing it reluctantly. So it is a hard thing to instill in a company that's been around. We have people at Zilliant who have been here for 20 years, and they have rich history with Zilliant, and they're great parts of the team. And so encouraging them and putting them at the forefront of that change is really core to helping drive the innovation across the rest of the employees.
Yeah. I'm always thinking about the change curve, right? And how we get people over into exploration of sort of whatever the new state will be, recognizing there's no steady state. But when people have been doing something not exactly the same way, but the same way for 20 years, and it's been working for them, it seems that there would be a fair amount of sort of built-in resistance to that. How have you overcome that?
I mean, I think that's making sure it's clear we have a new vision as a company. I came to Zilliant. Zilliant was acquired by a private equity firm, Madison Dearborn Partners, in 2021. They brought me on for a reason. We wanted to take Zilliant to the next chapter. And I think talking about it as a chapter or next side of the journey is important because it's not changing. I mean, what got Zilliant to where we're at today isn't wrong. It's just we're evolving to the next chapter in terms of our evolution. And so sharing the vision for what that means, making sure that we have the resources available, the people, the budget, the financials to be able to actually execute on that change, and then letting people, empowering them to make those changes happen is core. But we can't do that without clear vision, a clear strategy, and the resources. Otherwise, you're saying change, but we're limiting you to what you have right now. Sometimes those resources are just different mindset. Sometimes it's more resources. It changes by situation, but you have to empower them with not just words, but also budget and tools.
Yeah, it's great. I had also read that you use something called change champions within the organization in order to help drive change. Can you give an example of a change champion and maybe a significant change that has been made driven by these people?
I think there's two types. There's the type I mentioned, which are maybe individuals who have been part of Zilliant for a long time. We have people who have been here, and one of our leaders is Barrett. He's a great resource. He's a resource who's been critical to me as a newcomer, relatively newcomer, providing me focus. He's giving me feedback on here's why things have been done the way they've been done, not to try to defend them as much as to just give me an understanding. So when I talk about the change we're going through, I can address them in a way that is productive. Like, here's how we've done it before, and here's how we can change them. So to me, they're really useful individuals who provide me really good feedback and valuable feedback. So how I can relate to the company as opposed to I'm a new person. And then externally as well. I mean, they are also a good trusted resources internally within the Zilliant team in terms of helping share the feedback. I think it's great when people hear from me and from the leadership team, but it's even more impactful when they hear from some of these champions. And so just the mindset and just getting people bought into the change is important. The second type of champion are maybe people from outside who are just driving a transformation, a change, people who have seen it in a different ways. And I think a lot of it is people resist change because it's hard. Maybe they resist change because there's a certain level of emotion in what they were doing before, because maybe they kind of created it. And so hearing from somebody who's done it before and seen it work and seen it fail, and just bringing that type of mentality without having the handcuffs of this is how I've done it before, it kind of helps. So I think it's important. The champions can be both internal individuals who have been here for a long time and have that credibility, respect, and just kind of legacy understanding of the old Zilliant ways and why they were done. That's really important for me. And then obviously external resources who bring different ideas, not just my ideas, but other ideas who can help bring the people together towards a common goal.
Seems like it would take a great deal of trust for people who've been doing things the same way for a while to try the new way. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And we hear that a lot, which is, okay, we understand your vision, but we just don't understand how to get there, or
Right.
we don't know or confident that it will work. And so a lot of that is trust. And I ask the trust, and I need to earn that trust as a leader. My leadership team needs to earn that trust. That you can't just tell them. Telling them doesn't work. It only works to a certain level, but it doesn't really get you the outcome. And you're right, trust is part of it. I ask them to trust me, and they ask, and I in turn need to trust them as well.
I know we were talking before we went on air that you have a master's in organizational behavior, and you corrected me slightly to something, but
Organizational communication, yes.
Thank you. And that really was for you all tied to sort of how organization behavior and communications and technology, sort of where they intersect. Could you talk a little bit more about that? I mean, it seems like you found the perfect place to apply both that as well as your legacy experience from Salesforce.
Yeah, I think it's great. And as we talked about it earlier, you start off in engineering and then kind of apply that later in your career.
Right.
I will say lucky in the sense that I got to meet some professors who were both tenured in engineering at University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign, as well as in organizational communication and behaviors. And so for me, when I got to meet these professors, their focus was on how technology, information technology, can make organizations more efficient and more effective. And at the time, you go back to those days. This is when the internet was still pretty new. One of the first class trips was to the NCSA labs at University of Illinois, where Mark Andreessen was still a student, building the Mosaic web browser before he started Netscape. So that's kind of the time frame. And so this is new. And the key area for me was, it was really fascinating to see how technology can have an impact in a positive way, sometimes in a negative way, if used properly for teams, team behaviors, organizational design, organizational behavior. And when I joined, when I got out of school, it was always like that bridge. Everything I've done, and the common thread across all my experiences, technology and how it changes the way a company or organization behaves and operates. That's the common thread. And I think it's very relevant today when you think of AI. Everybody talks about AI. It's like the hottest thing in the world. People just change their names to whatever.ai, and then all of a sudden their valuation goes up some enormous amount. But most of it is just, technology. For me, it's really focused on, let's be practical and pragmatic. How do we use technology and AI as part of that to make it change and impact the way organizations behave and operate? That's our focus. It's making it practical and pragmatic.
Yeah, love that. I interviewed Simon Allen, who's the CEO of McGraw-Hill, a couple of weeks ago, and they're a 150-year-old company, and
yeah.
So, and he wanted to talk about how they've been using AI for a while, but how they're using generative AI and how it's really impacting the way that students are now learning. Because you can be more personalized, which is great. But he said our whole approach is, he said, we're a 150-year-old company. We do not get hysterical about new technology.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, that really sums it up. As you say, you need to find things that are practical and that are useful for people. Yeah. So as you look ahead, what do you see as the most significant challenges or opportunities for, I'll say, AI-driven solutions in your space? I'd say maybe both within your company, but also within the pricing revenue optimization space.
I mean, I think in general, not necessarily my space, it's just getting through the noise, right? There's a lot of noise, what's real, what's not real. Within the pricing space, AI is very valuable, but it's also really important when we look at data privacy. In the context of pricing, we're looking at data, transactional data. We are very, very B2B focused, and that transactional data helps inform and create insights that our customers can act on and obviously use that in the pricing of their products and services to their customers. In order to do that, we rely heavily on data. And whether you're in our space or any space, the challenges around consumer privacy and customer data is something that you can't overlook. And so for us, trust in our customers, trust in our data, and not commingling data, and just the commitment that we give to our customers is critical, because they're relying on our technology and our teams with their data. And this is data that's very sensitive. So I think that's one of the key is, how do we make it practical and make it pragmatic and impactful? How do we create those insights that allow the customers to drive fast actions and get the value faster without sacrificing the trust that we need to earn by our customers?
Yeah. So both data privacy and data integrity.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, one final question for you, something that I've been really interested in with regards to senior leadership in organizations, is the role of ambiguity. Because I know that the higher up the hierarchical ladder you go, the less clear often decisions are. It's pretty clear when you're a first line manager most of the time whether you want to say yes or no to something. But as a more senior leader, things are more ambiguous, in part because they're more complex. How do you deal with the ambiguity that's inevitably part of senior leadership?
I think number one, trust is important in the team, whether it be my extended leadership team, or we have the senior leadership team that kind of extended beyond my executive team. They're going to be core, and I need to trust their decisions as well, as opposed to trying to get into all the details and get rid of the ambiguity. The ambiguity is going to be there, and sometimes it's going to be resolved at a different level. But number two is, it's okay. Ambiguity is always going to be ambiguity. You can't predict everything. You can't know everything. Otherwise, you just don't do anything. And so going back to failing fast, like, I'm going to get things wrong as well, and I know that. I'm okay with that. My board's okay with that. We just need to be thoughtful in terms of the risks we're taking, the risks that we think are reasonable risks. And again, it's to be leading by behavior. If people see me taking some risks, not knowing everything and making a decision, and failing sometimes, making the wrong decision, and owning that and taking accountability for that decision, it gives them more confidence to do the same. So I think that ambiguity is actually a tool for me to say, if I knew everything, there would be no risk. And then there would be little need for entrepreneurial spirit, if you think of it from that perspective. And I think the last thing is, my advisors. I mean, I have a board. I have great partners at Madison Dearborn Partners, and a lot of times it's reviewing where are the blind spots we have, getting the advice from others who have done it before. I have a great network of peers who I continually talk to. People who participate in shows like this and broadcasts like this help me in terms of making better decisions, even in an ambiguous state. So there's a lot there, and there's no way to solve the problem. The problem is actually one you have to embrace, is my main message.
Terrific. Love that. Well, thank you so much for sharing both a little bit of your history with us, as well as what's going on with Zilliant, and some really great leadership nuggets. So again, we've been speaking with Pascal Yammine, who is the CEO of Zilliant. Thank you, and wishing you and your team all the best.
Thank you, Karen.